Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Tuesday, the 19th day of March, 2024. It is Tuesday of the 5th week of Lent. It is the 31st day of Lenten season, but also today is one of the days that we take a break from the course of Lenten readings and Lenten celebrations to honor the memory of St. Joseph, patron of the Universal Church, patron saint of Italy, also of France, one of the patrons of France, so patron of a variety of other countries and peoples also. Next to St. Patrick, it is one of the other great national feasts. It is a solemnity, so today's readings and Mass will all be from the Solemnity of St. Joseph. Again, there were only three days that take precedence over Lent, generally in our Lenten calendar. The first one was the Chair of St. Peter back in February 22nd. Today, St. Joseph, and then it would be the Annunciation on the 25th of March. But because it falls during Holy Week, we have to wait till after Easter week to celebrate the Annunciation this year. Blessed Feast of St. Joseph to everyone on this day. Eat a zepla, eat at a St. Joseph's table, have a good time, all these kinds of things. Our readings for today, again, so there isn't much to know about Joseph. He really appears in person only in Matthew and in Luke's Gospels. He is mentioned in other Gospels, but other than the beginning of Matthew and Luke's Gospels, we never hear from him again. We don't hear how he died, what happened to him later in life. He is often portrayed as an old man, and that helps basically to keep Mary, a virgin and things like that. But again, perpetual virginity of Mary is always something that, again, is still kind of a question. That she was before she bore Christ, yes. Afterwards, again, it is not always clear. And trying to say that brothers and sisters are just cousins when it's mentioned in the Gospels is not really correct. And again, we should not fear the fact that Mary and Joseph may have found love in many ways, together. Move away from the idea of him being an old man, move away from an idea of him basically dying shortly after Jesus was born. We just don't know much about him. But we do have, again, so there are three readings today because it is a solemnity. We do have in the Gospel two choices. And in both of them, Joseph doesn't come out looking the best, in some ways. The first one is from Matthew's Gospel, where the Annunciation does not happen to Mary, it happens to Joseph. And Joseph basically is told that Mary will have the Christ. But before he's told that, Mary basically tells him that she is with child. And he basically wants to divorce her quietly, hopefully that she will not be stoned, because that would be a punishment, because she would have had relations outside of marriage, and even conceiving a child would be worse. And so again, some of the ancient laws were the ancient laws. And so Joseph basically trying to back out of all of this, getting cold feet, not showing any kind of courage and not showing any kind of strength. And this is where Gabriel appears to him and says, do not be afraid of this. It is by God's will that this is happening. And so go with it. And so Joseph basically wakes up and he keeps Mary as his wife. Again, to even say that to keep Mary as his wife is kind of, archaic, but he remains with her. What happens after that? Again, we don't really know, but he didn't run out. But the possibility was for him to do so, and this is always the thing, is that sometimes in our own human desires, in our own human world that we construct for ourselves, we want everything just to be neat and orderly and together, and we think, in some ways, that if we just use these various calculations, if we just follow these different kinds of rules, we will come up with the same or similar results, to what it is that we try to do, and everything will be well. And generally, that's not always the case. And so, the story of Joseph from Matthew that shows us this. In Luke's Gospel, it's kind of even worse, because Joseph becomes a parent to Jesus and a husband to Mary, and it's good. He seems to take care of Mary, but in Luke's Gospel, the passage that we have is Jesus basically lost in the temple, and it doesn't seem as though he was a very good father to Jesus, because again, both he and Mary, so it's a joint venture, leave him in Jerusalem and don't realize that he is not with them for some time, traveling back to Nazareth, traveling back to Galilee, and so they have to go and find him. So Joseph's parenting skills, not always the greatest. And so what does all this say? It's again, focusing upon him today. Again, this man who was perhaps not the best in many ways, and someone who did not always follow the design, maybe even that God intended, was still, to be of use, and still to have a purpose, and still to be somebody who could contribute, to God's plan of salvation. You don't have to be perfect to do so. You don't have to get everything right to do so. You don't have to blindly trust to do so. In fact, God does not like blind trust, because it doesn't mean that we're using our intelligence. We're not using our wisdom and our thought to basically think this through, and to consider, all kinds of consequences and possibilities of saying yes. Joseph basically has the opportunity to do that. And while he may fail at times, he seems to have been, in some ways, faithful and steadfast, and always there to accompany both Mary and Jesus as they made their journey together in fulfilling God's plan of salvation. So a blessed St. Joseph Day, St. Francis and people of God, a blessed continuation of the season of Lent. May the Lord give you his peace.